comparison. We've said this every time. Comparison is the thief of joy, but like, what you can't compare someone's wins to someone's day 1,000 to your day one.
No.
Right. I think, and I heard this. Like, I've heard this on a Chris Williamson podcast. Like Alex Holmes, he speaks about it. It's like, you can't compare. It's not fair to compare yourself to someone that's done it for 5-7 years.
Yeah.
Right. You can't do that. It's just not right.
I faced that issue myself. Like,
yeah,
being a perfectionist once again, it's like, why can't I do that? I need to be able to do that. I need to be able to show that. And sometimes you look at their work and it gives you a second to just like look at the stuff that you're doing and take. Sorry about that. I had a funny thought come through.
What was the thought?
No, just.
What was the thought?
If that dog outside just jumped in through the window or something. Just ruined the podcast.
Tabby,
just to join in.
Yeah, so
Tabby, we miss you. We love you.
Yeah, what were we talking about? I've completely lost my train of thought now as well.
I think you're talking about
social comparison, right?
Yeah. So like,
how you
can't comparing
yourselves.
your day, 100 to like someone's, first day. I guess, a huge part of that is, I'll be doing work and I'll look at other people's work and I'll just be like, why can't I do this yet? But you can't do that because the amount of experiences or things that you need to go through during that entire process before you get to that stage, you're not seeing that on social media. You're not seeing that anywhere else. You're not seeing the journey. You're not seeing the mistakes. You're not seeing any of that stuff before, the part that they actually like to show off. And it's the same thing for me. A huge part of detailers is we show the final work. We don't show what actually happened in the middle. But
so you're an imposter. Yeah, you want to be one of those. I'm joking.
No, so like a huge part of it now that I'm realizing is that if I want to also teach people, then I need to show them my mistakes.
Yep.
You do need to show them your mistakes and showing the entire process. So I've gone from just posting photos and videos of the end product to now going into a stage where I'm showing what I'm doing in the middle. And I realized that got a lot more engagement because people are getting to learn, they're getting to understand what goes behind the scenes. And I think people love that.
I also think, I'm going to make 2 points here. To your point, like, you're right, people love learning. I think you'd be very surprised as to understand people actually like to learn things, right? Whether it's fun facts, whether it's something, we have the mind to actually learn. We have the mind to expand, right? We want to, learning new concepts is actually really good for us. We enjoy it. Not just me, not anyone, right? If you teach someone something genuinely, they actually retain that. They're like, oh, wow, like that was good. Like, but then there comes a point where some people aren't willing to learn, but they have the ability to learn. They just don't have the willingness to learn from other people, which becomes a problem. But you know what really grinds my gears at times? Like, I really like the idea that you do that, but, showing your mistakes and the process. But it's day in the life of. Have you done that? Yeah, like day in the life of a detailer. Today I had an M3 BMW. And then I spent 2 hours on it. I had a coffee. It's so unrealistic. Like I see people in finance. Sorry, just a rant. I see people in financial services do it, right?
Yes,
it's like, I went to the office at 8. I had a coffee at 8:30. I had my first meeting at 9. Then I read a newspaper with Casey at 11. No, you didn't. Like,
it's
realistically, you've literally sat there and done nothing, or you've literally had back-to-back meetings. Like, you've been so busy, you don't have the time to vlog, right? So it goes back to my point about fake reality.
Yeah, no,
like,
100%.
why are you creating a reality for everyone to see that financial services is glamorized?
Yeah,
and I'm not meaning to, thing on financial services. I think it's a very rewarding. There are certain every career has rewards and it has its cons.
Yeah.
Anything you do, right? Whether it's entrepreneurship, financial services, engineering, whatever you do.
Yeah.
But stop selling a fake reality. It's fake news. Like you're selling a fake reality that doesn't exist for 99% of people that work in the industry.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
So, no, but you're roping people in. You're roping them through a facade as well, and then they're making big decisions. Like right now, like whether it's social media, whatever it is, people use it as a place of information. And a huge part 100%. That I saw was, actually, believe it or not, I'm not going to say their name. There is someone that made videos like that I know. And the comments were like, oh, girl, how do you get this job? Like, where do you work, or what steps did you take? And the fact that someone is making a decision
Based
to be
on
like,
that.
I'm going to apply and change my entire, like, my life by going and applying for this role based on something you saw on TikTok is mental to
It's
me.
insane. But how do you have the time? Like, how do you
Yeah,
have the
that's
time
also
to
another thing.
record? Today I did this, then I did that, and then I did this. I had a 4-hour lunch. Like, dude, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but I know people that actually sit at the desk and eat because they're so busy.
Busy, yeah.
Right,
hard.
and it happens. Like, some people think, oh, what do office workers actually do? There's a lot of things that go into it that we can't really speak about. But there's a lot of, at the end of the day, every single person is trying to make a
Yeah.
change in some way for either themselves or a business. There are initiatives that people are working towards, right? Like, it's not about, oh, well, those office workers, they don't do anything, or it's those construction workers, they just complain. They don't, but I'm just, I'm just saying. Like,
yeah.
but it's like, why are we not empathetic enough to just understand that everyone has their own thing to do? But the day in the life of thing, like, you're right. People start using that as a way to make decisions. And
No, the one that I crack up on is when like these guy makes slow-mo videos of them like setting up their bed and like they fucking my bad when they go ahead and like smack the pillow, or they do all this like weird stuff to make it like look all pretty and stuff. Like,
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, like those videos where they shoot like every little second of what they do in their life. It's like cleaning the table or whatever. Like, I know what you're saying.
It's
romanticizes
And then
it.
like even at the shopping mall, like they record them like walking into the door and then them getting groceries. Like, imagine the tripod stands and just like it's just
can you imagine a future of like that many influencers and you're trying to do your shopping and there's like 8 different like stands
Cameras.
everywhere? It's like, oh sorry, I walked into your video,
Dodge
my
them.
bad.
hey man, you walked into my video. You owe me $100.
Yeah, that happens a lot in the gyms, right? Like,
It does. I think,
sometimes.
Sometimes people in the gym, when they record themselves, I actually support it. Like, I think it's like, because some people want to watch their form and that sort of stuff.
That's fine. Yeah.
No,
I
but
think
if
that's
you're
an
also
issue
doing
with
it
that.
as a platform to because there's different
Yeah,
ones.
yeah.
There's teaching. There's actual like, hey guys, do X, Y, Z, have this form. Then there's other ones where just a music playing over like someone just doing like all these different random things.
So I think it's like, I think gym is somewhere people, and this is a hot take, but a gym is somewhere you should work out. But if you are willing to share knowledge that will help other people,
Yeah.
and if that requires you to set up a tripod and
Different
to show
story.
someone, then I think it's a
That's-
different case.
I think it's like intention that matters.
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly right. But if summarize last 10 minutes, summarize this whole thing, intention.
Yeah.
But no, I think how have you used? No, I know you were talking about social media and how you got into detailing. Let's talk about the car detailing, like the car culture, right? Because I think that's something like I really want to speak to you about.
Yeah.
So me personally, I'm into F1, like super fanatic F1 fan. Been watching it since like 2017. I had friends in high school that would watch it, and I'm like, oh, that seems pretty cool. Like, this was in 2016.
Yeah.
And then slowly got into it, right? Now it's like, now I see what Netflix has done with Drive to Survive, for example, right?
Yeah.
It's created a culture of this level of rivalry between fans that never existed,
Yeah.
right? Like, you can have your favorite driver and your favorite team,
Yeah.
but you got to appreciate there's other drivers as well, what they're able to do,
Now
right?
it's
Like,
just like Hamilton and Max Verstappen, like they're just these two.
yeah, and it's like, oh no, like the 2021 season is a classic example. People were creating fake narratives, man, like of, oh, Max hates Hamilton or etc. But it's like, that's really not the case. Like, their rival in the car, like, you can imagine the adrenaline that's going through their blood, their minds, racing at 300 Ks. Obviously, there's going to be mistakes that are going to happen. Someone's going to do something silly. It happens,
high risk. Yeah.
right? But the fans created but I will say the 2021 season it makes me throw up. But but the car culture in Australia specifically,
Yeah.
how has it shifted from your, like, based on what you've, like, your observations?
Yeah, look, for me specifically, a huge part that we get to see nowadays is Australian car culture, right? There was a point where we were our own manufacturers, as you guys remember, Holden. Holden was the epitome of like Australian cars. It was a home of like Aussie V8 motorsports.
Every Aussie's going to hear that and just have a teardrop.
Yeah, like even me, right? Like a huge part of it was when I was in year like 9 and about to get my P's. The first thing you kind of think about, because it's the most affordable car and the most P-plate friendly car that was fun as well, was a Holden. And, you know, obviously them leaving Australia affected the entire car culture. But when Australia's car culture originally started, right, with like Holdens, V8s and all that stuff, there was like obviously that love for driving. There was a love for modifications. There was all that stuff. There was actually a period of time. This is when I would like the early 2000s. We call it the sex spec era. So sex spec, the easiest way to kind of explain this to you guys are cars that were just so heavily modified, both exterior and interior, that it was just like, it was a wow factor, right? Like you'd be putting like 20-inch gangster silver rims that would spin on their own. You would take the entire interior out and put like a very specific white Napa leather, and you'd have like, do you guys remember Pimp My Ride?
Yeah,
And
I
it
know
was
that
show, yeah.
like game consoles.
Yes, the game consoles, like a PlayStation in the middle, like a TV in the back. That was sex spec, right? That was a huge part of it, and a lot of these guys that I know that were there during that period of time, it was a culture that was a lot more, I would say, forgiving in a way. It was a place where people could, from any background, could come and just join. It was a place where if you had even the tiniest bit of love for cars, you could just come and like meet people and go on car cruises, enjoy your time. A huge shift as well was that when immigrants started coming in. So when immigrants started coming in, like a big one of it is Italians and Greeks, right?
Lebos as well.
Lebos.
Arabs.
Their love for cars were also kind of different to what Aussies were. Like Aussies, it was like the standard Bogan V8 car, and for like people from like the Lebanese background, a huge focus for them was imports. So Japanese cars, S15s, S14s, all that. And there's like this like little mini, I don't know what to say, but rivalry between big Aussie V8s, which are obviously derived from American V8s, and Asian import JDM cars, stuff all like that, because V8s are just massive, big old engines that just push a lot of straight power, and JDM imports were like this genius little 4-cylinder car, but they'll chuck a turbocharger on, and then they would equate to the same power as a V8, and there would just be this little rivalry between them. But you know what? It was still all love at the end of the day, and it was a place for people to grow, share, and just talk about their fascination of cars. Now, I would say over the last 10 to 15 years, the car culture died. A huge part of it died. It's a lot harder for people to join in. Like even for me, like when I first got in, it wasn't like I didn't get my S15. Like there was a time, like I hear from these guys, they talk to me about it. They're like, oh dude, I picked up a S15 for a pack of beers, and like an S15 now is 40 grand. So that just shows how much the price has shifted, like the cost of trying to enter the market. I remember when I first entered, I think you guys will remember this quite well. I started pimping out my dad's Corolla, and I spray painted the rims. Like I tried to make it red, but it turned pink, and like I put an exhaust on it as well. I look like the biggest flop on the road. People would just like look at me like, dude, what is this guy doing? Yeah, who are you? And I started growing out of it, and I started like going into like, especially like when you go to a Macca's drive-through, loud exhaust, and people were just like, what is that? And they'll turn. And like you'd want to see a cool car, but then you see a Corolla with pink rims. People are like, what's wrong with this kid? But yeah, look, with the car culture, it was a lot more accommodating. It was a place for people to come in and talk about cars and their love for cars. Last 15 years, obviously, it died out, and it's a lot harder to join. There's also a little bit of, I would say, it's toxic as well nowadays. Now, as you were talking about that exact thing that you were stating with F1, right? Like there's these narratives and hate stories and all these things that don't exist. Like now, what went from like, oh, my car's faster than yours has turned into like, oh, if you have a JDM, you're just whack. If you have an Aussie V8, you're a bogan. And it's kind of built that story around it, and people will like, they won't just join in for their love of cars. They're like, I need to have this specific car so I can be put with this specific group of people.
I've seen it in, it's a good point. I've seen it in Facebook Marketplace, like some of the comments, right? Because you're you're known to be a unauthorized seller, but you tend to post cars for other people and help them sell the cars. And it's interesting because you're a car guy, you've got sources, you know the price of a car, you know exactly what the car's worth.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these comments from people that just have no clue, but need to butt in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the butt-ins. It's
Yeah.
the butt-ins. I'm going to be honest. It's the people that just have to stick their nose in and be like, no, you're wrong. No, you got to get out of that mindset, man. Like, I think, like, if you have nothing valuable, nice to add to something, just shut your mouth, right? And I mean that genuinely. Like, sometimes you can make criticism of certain things if you know what you're talking about. But if you don't know what you're talking about, don't criticize.
Yeah.
I think that's fundamentally.
Yeah, you should know what you're talking about before you come out there and just say something.
So,
and
the people are like, well, I have the right to an opinion. Yeah, you are, but you also have the right to criticism of your opinion because
Yeah.
your opinion is stupid and it
Yeah.
doesn't come from facts. It comes from a place of
Ego or something.
ego. Exactly. It's like, oh, I'm a know-it-all. You know,
Yeah.
oh, I think you're an idiot. Because you know also what I think it is? It's like, if I say this, people are going to agree with me and I'm going to look like a hero.
Yeah, yeah. It's the
I've
white
noticed
line.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm going to get 10 likes on this comment and everyone's going to
Yeah.
think I'm a hero. And I'm going to walk around with my chest out all day and think I'm like the biggest guy. Like, dude, relax. You made a comment on
Yeah.
Facebook about a car that you know nothing about.
And
Let's
they'll
be
just
honest.
bag it on for ages, and it's just like, bro, there's no point. Like, someone's trying to sell their car. Like, I've had some people so done with this, they're like, dude, I'm just trying to sell my car. Like, what
Yeah.
is your problem?
Exactly. And I think at the end of the day, if someone's willing to pay that price, let them pay that price.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, and I also think, on the contrary, though, some people do. I will say, though, there are some people that know what they're talking about and actually add valuable points.
Correct.
So those people are valued. You make your comment 100%. Like, that's where not criticism, but that's where you want to learn from someone, right? Like, oh, maybe
Yeah.
I didn't think of this, or maybe that person's got a point.
Yeah.
But there are, you know what I'm talking about. There's heroes, you know, sort of the white knights of the car industry
Yeah.
in a way. But you know, you said something about the car culture becoming toxic. Like, what's actually been the barrier to entry for cars? Has it been like what? Why is it hard to enter into the car culture now?
I would say it's hard. Okay, there's a few things, right? The first one, it's kind of died off. A huge part of it has died off. It's that the barrier, like a huge barrier to entry, is the cost of cars. It's the cost of like a passion, right? It's not like back in the day where there was a culture where if you didn't have a part, this other guy had it. Oh, dude, like I'll swap you this part, or just have it. Or you want to grow the next guy into like, let's work on cars together. That doesn't exist. Like, I saw that in like shows, movies, and old posts, and I would think I would have that. But when I would try to get into that, it's like, no, it's too busy. Like, can't help you with that. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, fair enough. And a huge part of the culture or the barrier to entry is its own people that are currently in the car scene, right? Like, if there are kids out there that I know, like my brother and his friends, that I genuinely believe have gotten into cars because of me. Because I showed my brother how to get into cars. He got into cars and then he influenced his friends. And now, you know, when I drive up the street and I just pump it, they get so excited. It makes me so happy to see their faces just like spark up because they're seeing something that they enjoy. And essentially, me as an individual should be the gate to allow people to enter. Like when these kids grow up or, you know, get their P's and stuff and they have questions or they want to learn and, you know, etc., I need to be able to help them do that. But for myself to be able to do that, or like for me to join, I didn't get that. It was so hard. It was just like, you don't know what you're talking about. There's no point in you joining, or they're just going to laugh. Like, you know what I mean? With the pink rims and everything, like as funny as that story was, it should have been a place for someone to come through and just be like, oh, dude, I'll show you how to actually make it look nice. I'll show you actually what to do, or here's some criticism. And like, you know, there was this thing that I was looking at quite a while back is like the sex spec era, like how much it's died off. There's this really famous S14, like a Nissan Sylvian S14 that used to be on the magazine back in the day called the Hot Fours. Hot Fours was just a famous platform for people to post like their builds and their cars and appreciate it at car shows. It was huge, like that was like a huge thing back then. And that car, for some reason at a specific workshop, that door of that car was still there, just the door. And you can just see about 15 layers of paint, each layer telling you a story, because each layer essentially would have been like, all a few layers would have been a new owner at the time, because cars would move like this between owners when it first started, right? Like your car would have been owned by maybe 30 people in the span of like 5 years. Nowadays, someone gets a car, they hold on to an ages. And it's just crazy, like seeing all those paint jobs on the car and just realizing the life that car went through. Now it's probably just garaged by some random dude who's just like, oh, I'm gonna keepsake it forever, and you'll never get to see the light of day again. It's also, I would say, toxic. The community itself, it's like, if we're going on that point, it's also a barrier to women. There's some really amazing girls that I know that are in the car community that have been completely shunned out by guys just because they're a girl. And these girls have amazing cars. They have amazing skills. There's this one girl that I know, Sam. Her whole thing is like getting little Hot Wheel cars and like getting a little platform, like a little plastic platform, putting it on, painting it and making it look really pretty. And it's just like, you can actually get custom orders. So I can be like, hey, can you take my Hot Wheels and put it under like a cherry blossom tree? And she would make the cherry blossom, little pink leaves falling over the car, little details, right? And it's amazing that she does that. But it's sad because I've seen how people have essentially, pulled her down. You're a girl, shouldn't be in this community. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. And that, it takes a toll on her as well. And because of that, a lot of people aren't interested in the community anymore.
That's a big one, man. I think there are parts where certain aspects or industries or cultures where there are talent with women that have the talent and they really want to be a part of it. It's a passion, but it just takes a few idiots because of their misogynist thinking. And I mean, you know what I mean? It's not right. Like you can't be doing that. But it's sad to hear that, man. Like,
yeah.
How would you the car? I think you said something about the cost being barrier to entry. It seems like, from what I'm hearing, it's become a rich boys club. If you've got money, then that's how you get the good cars and that's how you've got the status, right?
Yeah.
But it used to be a point where it was an entry to anyone. Anyone could come
exactly.
with anything and make something out of it and be a part of something that isn't so restrictive. It was open to everyone.
Yeah.
I also think people lack empathy these days.
Yeah.
If we look at, I think social media, again, has taken away the empathy factor in people. I was having a chat with a mate yesterday at the gym and he said that. He was like, I think people are just less empathetic these days.
Yeah.
And you see it.
I've been, even I've succumbed to it. Like, there are times where, like, you'd see this story and it's wrong of me, but you lose empathy because of perception.
Yes.
Because someone will go ahead and leave a comment that will change, that will flip the entire script. You know what I mean? Like, this person lost their child, end of story. But then someone will put in like 10 different things that didn't need to be there. And all of a sudden your perception starts changing of this person. You're like, oh, they did that? Nah, they don't deserve that level of empathy. But really, that's the wrong way to be viewing
100%.
it.
There are times where you just got to look at things. Like, having your own perception is very important. But also just being a little empathetic towards things. Like, it's a human nature, but we all just start to judge straight away, right? Like, see something like, oh, you sort of think of negatively of some people, and it's like, you shouldn't be doing that at all. You should be thinking of what that person, like, there's something behind that person. There's an entire life behind that person that you don't know of. So why not be a little kind?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, look, it comes back to, I would say, that really significant person in my life, essentially my mentor. And it was him that taught me this way of looking at things, and it completely blew my mind because he's studying mental health and a few other different things. His point was, you don't know what someone is going through, so you can't essentially just go ahead and judge them straight away. Like, and that means anything. Like, we try to see it at a higher level, but we should be seeing at all levels. What I mean by that is every little action that takes place in your day. You're driving, someone cuts you off. You have two options at this point in time. Road rage, get off the right lane, start going off at them. Or you can take a moment to think, why did they do that? They could be rushing to go to their pregnant wife. They could be, there could be something that they really need to get to, whatever. You just don't know. And this applies to every level. And that moment that you take that step back and start to realize what people have been going through or what's happening in their day-to-day lives, you get that little bit of empathy and you take a step back. Because when you play fire with fire, once they say like the whole world will burn, right?
Yes, but we've had experiences where someone has played with fire. We haven't, and they've got burnt really bad. Where M5, the guy coming off.
Oh, dude, are we getting?